The revolution was finally over. Political prisoners were liberated. One of them was Siamak Jari, a communist journalist. He wrote subversive articles in the Kehen. His wife was the best friend of Margie's mother. To celebrate his liberty, Margie's and his family had a reunion, where there also was Mohsen, a revolutionary communist. Torturers and the kind of tortures they suffered were the main theme. But there was even more. Ahmadi, a friend of them, was assassinated and cut to pieces, as a member of the guerrillas had to suffer hell. Meanwhile, Margie was feeling the power. After all, the only place she felt safe was in God's arms. Margie wanted a hero in her family, and so it appeared. Her uncle Anush. It all started with his story. Anush was 18 years old, and his uncle Faridun proclaimed the independence of Azerbaijan. They believed in justice and freedom. Faridun as a minister of justice of the new republic, and Anush as his secretary. There was just a problem: the Shah. So one day, the Shah soldiers arrested Faridun, and luckily he was executed. But one night before, he and his girlfriend decided to have a baby as a living memory of him. Anush escaped to find a refuge at his parents' home. However, he decided to go into exile and arrived in the USSR. As he was in Moscow, he became a student and have a doctorate in Marxist-Leninism. He also got married and had 2 children. Besides, he also got divorced, and feeling alone, he decided to go home. Lamentably, he was arrested and put in prison for 9 years as soon as he arrived. Margie was feeling great listening to the story. Anush came with political discussions about the Islamic Republic. There was kind of disappointment because of the people and the state. As a consequence of the Islamic Revolution, many families left the country, but Margie's stayed following Anush's faith. There were hard times. Mohsen was martyred by being drowned in his bathtub. Also, his sister Siamak was executed. Their family had to cross the border hidden among a flock of sheep. Apart from that, Anush was arrested. Margie had the opportunity to visit him before he was executed because of being a Russian spy. But that was not the worst. It was the beginning of the war. A year passed, and one day the fundamentalist students occupied the U.S. Embassy. Moreover, some days later, the Ministry of Education decreed that universities were going to be closed for 2 years as a need to impose imperialism and Islamism. That was a misfortune for Margie, who wanted to be a chemistry. For not wearing veil, women were raped because somehow hair emanated rays that excited men. One day, Margie's mother was almost fucked as a result of that. The way people dressed became an ideological sign. There were 2 kinds of men and women, fundamentalist and progressive. Ordinary people changed from the way they dressed to the times they prayed. Finally, Margie saw violence with her own eyes while she was in a real demonstration for the first and last time. Furthermore, of what they were living, Margie's family decided to go on vacation to Italy and Spain. Also from the outside, what in Iran was happening was devastating. As soon as they arrived, Grandma announced that they were leaving the second Arab invasion. Few days later, Iraqi MiGs bombed Tehran. With no aerial force since fighter pilots were jailed or executed, there was no chance to bomb Baghdad. Islamism forbade the Iranian national anthem, so it was incredible that one day it was coming from the TV, and also that they were announcing at the 8 News that 140 Iranian F-14s carried out bombing raids in Baghdad that night. Besides, half of the PLs in the mission had not returned, including the victims was Pardi's father, a friend of Margie. Behind the pure war, there were consequences. For example, gradually, supermarkets were empty since the refugees had descended on Tehran. That caused prostitution for food. On the other hand, gas stations were empty as well. There wasn't enough to fill cans after Iraq bombed the refinery of Abadan. People started to get rude, including Margie's dad. After Abadan, every border town was targeted by bombers. Most of the people living in those areas had to flee northward. Consequently, Mally, a friend of Margie's mom that lived in Abadan, and her family lost everything. Fortunately, they found refuge on Margie's house for a week while they sold their jewels and reestablished.